America is home to 33 million small businesses, the beating heart of communities across the country.
And proof that the American dream is still alive.
This is a show about those dreamers and doers and the communities they serve.
Their real life stories.
Their struggles and successes.
Their grit, determination, and passion.
And the people who fight
to keep their American dream alive.
I'm Alfredo Ortiz.
I'm Elaine Parker.
And it's time for another episode of Main Street Matters,
America's small business megaphone.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone. I'm Elaine Parker, the president of the Job Creators Network Foundation.
And I'm Jordan Bruno, vice president of Job Creators Network.
You can subscribe to the show at salempodcastnetwork.com or wherever you get your podcasts from. Today, we are joined by Phillip Toppino. Phillip runs W.O.F.T, where they train professionals, individuals, and families to be sharp, alert, and effective in different environments we face every day. W.O.F.T, or Where Our Families Train, is a premier education center in Lake County, Florida, specializing in conscious self-defense preparedness for real-life scenarios. Phillip and I met at an event just a few weeks ago, and I learned about his business. Phillip, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join us today and tell us a little bit about your business. What is your background? How did you start a business like this? I think it's so interesting.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me today. You know, the message I like to tell is that everyone wants safety. And I'm the founder and director of W.O.F.T. W.O.F.T is a 20-acre private facility outside of Orlando, Florida. And we specialize in real-life scenario safety and instruction. I'm a husband of 24 years and a father of two awesome kids, a son who just turned 19 and a daughter who's 16. And I created W.O.F.T because I wanted safety for my family when I can't always be with them. And I couldn't find exactly what I wanted around the country in a custom family learning experience, so I made my own.
So what is your background? And where do you come from? Law enforcement? Sort of walk us through how you saw that need and what is your background that kind of fills the skill?
Yeah, it's amazing because how I got to this was I was in commercial real estate development and I did really well, and I semi-retired about 20 years ago, and I was able to travel the country and train with whoever I wanted. And so W.O.F.T is really more of a collection of subject matter experts that I have all the credentials that a civilian can have. And I went and trained with all of these retired military, law enforcement, and I was able to kind of cherry pick. And I saw a lot of really good information around the country, but nothing that was really custom to a civilian learning experience, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so that's something that my wife, I want safety when I'm not with her. And if the bathrooms aren't clean, she's not coming back, right? I had younger kids at the time, and instead of a military or tactical law enforcement approach, it's more of what's more likely to happen, which is nothing that a stranger approaches you in a transitional space, or gosh forbid, what's happening right now up north is that you have a natural disaster or something where you have the infrastructure breaks down for a period of time, and you need more safety and mindset training for yourself and your family.
Interesting.
Phillip, what's your call to action to ordinary folks, ordinary people living day to day to get them to take self-defense seriously?
When I referenced earlier about scenario safety, I want to give a little definition of that. It basically, scenario safety, it teaches everyone the skills necessary to handle real life encounters and empowers you to deal with the potentially harmful everyday situations that can happen. And when I say scenario safety, let's begin with what is a scenario, okay? Think of it like this. Every day, every one of us enter and exit scenarios. We go to the grocery store. We go to gas stations. We walk our dog. We go to restaurants. We travel on airplanes into other cities and other countries. These are all scenarios, a simple part of our everyday life. And most of us enter and exit these scenarios quite oblivious to our surroundings. And with the advent of cell phones, many are completely distracted. Now, generally, it's not a problem. Most of the time, it's all quite civilized. We focus on the moments when it's not. What happens when a stranger approaches you? What happens when someone starts to follow you? What happens when someone becomes aggressive? And now your scenario has become a situation. What would you do? What should you do? So at WOFT, we teach everyone how to deal with these very real encounters so that everyone can be empowered to manage these very difficult situations. And case in point, you're at the gas station and there's a long line and things start to happen in ego-based scenarios and things like that. The legality of confrontation before, during, and after is what we immerse people in. And it's not a tactical thing because everyone wants safety with or without force multipliers or other tools, if that makes sense.
Definitely. So how much of your training would be considered maybe de-escalation, for lack of a better word, and how much of it would be considered, say, tactical self-defense moves?
I would say 100% is de-escalation because first we want to learn you, and it's a custom learning experience. So it's very hard to convey that no one is doing this around the country and nothing else is like it. And so we want to focus first on what are your concerns. And then the classes are a custom learning experience for you and your family, because you might have a spouse or a better half that says, I don't need to go to ninja training school. That's why I have you. Or we have firearms in the house and we have children that need to know about firearm safety. So with your valuable time, a 2-day class or a 1-day class first starts with learning about you, what you're concerned about, and then we start to show you and apply safety concepts, showing you first what's more likely to happen, which is nothing, and then working up to, when you're ready with the proper skill set, the potential of a situation where you might have to defend yourself. And depending on what state you live in makes a big difference. Depends on what county of that state that you live in makes a big difference. Depending on how the municipalities might be a little more aggressive by prosecuting you, or if you're in a state that doesn't have red flag laws, or if they don't have a castle doctrine like we do here in Florida.
You know, when my kids are grown, I think I mentioned this to you when we met a few weeks ago. They're 21 and 24 now. But when they were younger, there was these safety videos that I let them watch. They were called Safe Side Super Chick in the early 2000s. And she taught them about stranger danger. And, you know, I had some things happen when I was younger that made me sort of more hyper aware, possibly paranoid, and made me aware of more situational issues. And so when I started introducing them to Safe Side Super Chick and some of the scenarios, I realized we train our children to be obedient, right? Respectful to adults. What we don't train them to do is to not always be obedient and to understand when they should not be obedient. And so I used to do the real scenarios. I used to kind of lay out certain things. We even had a family password, which is a silly word, but it was a word that I knew nobody would come up with. It was froggy pants. That was the word. We used it all through their teenagers. We used to joke. We still joke about it today that froggy pants was our password. And that if somebody came up to you, I would do scenarios like if somebody ever came up to you and grabbed your hand and said, your mom told me to come and get you. Come, I need you to come. Most children are going to be like, oh my gosh, come. And I would say, if they don't know that password, then you start screaming. This is not my mom. This is not my dad. This is not my mom. Scream as loud as you can. Be disobedient. Be disrespectful. I would teach them that. Be disrespectful, because I will always forgive you. I will never punish you for being disrespectful if you're afraid for your safety. And don't always trust everybody. Are those some of the types of things? And walk us through how you work with children or families in those scenarios.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. And that is the fundamentals of the foundation of safety is not one thing. It's a lot of little things added up. So I always get the question, how does it work? So for me, scenario training done properly teaches you how to think, right? Not what to think while you're under stress. And it gives you some experience so that the first time they might be approached by a stranger isn't the first time, because you've role played safety concept, if that makes sense. So at WOFT, classes start with education and awareness. We teach you both what to do and how to do it. then the real magic happens. We've all watched a behind the scenes episode about how TV shows or movies are made. Think of WOFT like a movie studio backlot. We're the featured star. And we set up scenes like a parking garage interaction or a visit to the coffee shop. Then we put you in the scenario, showing you the safety concepts, and hit play. An example of this might be like, okay, Mary, your car is in the parking garage and you're getting off the elevator. Go ahead, walk to your car and get in just like you always do. Mary encounters, she might walk to her car, and with her experience, someone might be at her car. She might be followed to her car, and she might have an encounter. And because nothing's likely to happen in our day-to-day life, but when it does, you get that adrenaline rush. And the adrenaline affects the body very differently. You can have visual, audio exclusion. So it's all part of the experience to help someone like a Mary learn how to apply safety concepts in real time under stress. And that's how you gain real experience from real situations, which produce transformative outcomes and very, very real learning results.
I know that this is an extreme situation, an extreme example, but I believe that some of the things that I did with my kids has prepared them from some situations that they experienced. My younger daughter, about 3 years ago, about 2 days before Christmas, went to Target by herself in the evening, busy parking lot when she went in. She had to park all the way to the back of the parking lot. By the time she came out, it was probably 8:30, 9 o'clock. And her car was out there by itself at this point. Much of the lot had cleared out. But when she walked out to her car, there were 3 big SUVs parked around her car, black SUVs with dark tinted windows, one on each side and one in front. And I know you can't see my hands, but one on each side of the car and one in front. And as she walked up, she was immediately alert. And she said that to me. I was immediately alerted to 3 big SUVs around my little car. And she, instead of putting her stuff in her trunk like she would normally do, she just got in the car as quick as she could. And she saw the man sitting in front of her in the front parking spot in front of her. And she immediately just started the car and left. While she was driving, she saw something flapping under the windshield blade. I always get a little upset when I talk about this, but she saw something under the windshield blade, and it was just a sticky note. And just because of TikTok and videos, it turns out that those are one of the ways that they take young girls and send them into like sex trafficking. They do something to distract them, like put something on their car so that they get out and check their windshield, and then they take them. And so I believe that the things that I did may have contributed to her being that alert in that situation. And when she told me that, I just was so taken back. She became very frightened. It hit her right away. She knew exactly what that little sticky note meant. And she was just like, I can't believe that I didn't look at the sticky note. I just went.
Yeah, it's pre-fight indicators is the phrase that we use, that you scan. You're not paranoid, but you look for things unusual in your everyday life. And when you see something unusual, you give it more attention. And that's where the training kicks in. And again, thankfully, she had some training with you. And what we found is that the retention goes to 600 to 800% higher, because while I don't have a military or law enforcement background, I am force science certified and I have my private securities license. And we've been doing this now organically for the past 15 years. And we train the trainers. So anyone out there that's ever seen John Wick, for example, that movie, the 3-gun national champion that trained Keanu Reeves for John Wick trains with us, Taryn Butler. And we specialize in people that want to make safety a priority. We offer a custom learning experience that is unmatched, and it gives you and your family collectively like a think tank to learn together. And again, what I wanted is we just have catered food and a professional photographer and a videographer. And so we have the best Christmas parties, the team building element of it, and then where families can come at any age and still learn and get better, because those life experiences, this is something that, you never check that box off that you're safe. You can always get better. So our goal is to start you on a path, and through team building and just family bonding, provide really cool, fun family experiences, and then capture that on video and photography, and allow a we live forever through our kids. And if something bad happened to my children, I wouldn't want to be here.
Exactly.
Phillip, I appreciate the different scenarios and individualization, because I'm sure the security needs of a 20-year-old woman like Elaine's daughters is different from somebody who, say, lives in a bad neighborhood. I'm trying to think of, for our listeners, for our audience, I'd venture to say the most common security problem that a lot of our small business owners and ordinary folks on Main Street are facing is the massive increase in vagrancy, mentally ill population, and junkies. Now, there's a big contingent on the political left that says, oh, these people aren't violent, they're sick. But we can all agree they're much more violent than an average person. And I had one of my good friends, he was approached by a vagrant, asked him for money, and then ended up sucker punching him, and had to go to the hospital, get his stitches. How do you teach interacting with this population that now, unfortunately, over the last several years has just become so prevalent in this great cities of this country?
Fantastic question. And it's one of those things where that is an argument out there that says, well, it's not a mental health thing, or they're not that bad, or, and it's very sensitive now that we can't even say certain words. What we found that is very neutral is transience, right? Because when you mention something and you use any other way to describe it, it's just, it flares things. And again, everyone wants safety. So what we talk about are back to the pre-fight indicators, and we talk about predators. And predators do certain things when they approach you. They want you, or they want something that you have. And so what we first start with is we start with a flashlight. Things that I showed, everyone that was at the church that day. A flashlight is something that can be carried with you anywhere, all the time. Gun-free zones, you can carry it on an airplane. And with this allows us to help magnify our voice and be what we can call a hard target, because we cannot legislate away violence. And unfortunately, people that are in transitional spaces, unfortunately, and when you talk about transients, for example, they are allowed to carry certain tools that the police are not allowed to take away from them because they're tools. So there are things around the country right now where you could have someone who is at a gas station. They walk up to you and they are allowed to carry a screwdriver. They are allowed to carry a hammer. They are allowed to carry box cutters because those are tools. And no matter how erratic that might be acting, the police that you call that may or may not show up in a timely manner, in that moment, they are not allowed to disarm them of those tools. And they know that. And everyone watching this might know someone. And unfortunately, similar to just this call, two of you have already shared stories that have happened to you or someone that you care about. And that's what we're running into a lot, where it's like, listen, I don't want it to happen. And we can't stop that person. We can't preemptively make that person go away, but we can keep situations like that from happening to ourselves and people we care about by doing certain things in a certain order and being what we call a hard target. A hard target is basically the fact that predators don't want to get hurt. And just learning how to see that, and something that was referenced earlier, being okay with giving permission to be loud, to be rude, if you will, to a stranger, and keep distance. Distance is our friend. When distance breaks down, you lose reaction time. And these are things that we hard focus on, and again, built around experience. So unless it's your place of work, if you are in a transitional space like a gas station or a grocery store or someplace like that, these are where applying safety concepts is what helps you make you a lot safer. And I just want to reiterate that people always ask me, can I experience this thing online? Is there a video I can watch? Is there an interactive tutorial? And the answer is always no. There is no substitute for a live in-person custom learning experience. And that's what we specialize in. Now, introductory, yes, it's something that if someone lives in Australia and they come to visit us, or you can learn a lot by watching, but the retention really goes down. And unless you apply that to your own life, you're not going to retain it or get empowered and inspired to want to learn more.
Interesting. And then I'll just give the other side of the question, just as a person who believes in nonviolence, and like we all do. But I was getting on a bus with my two kids, and I wasn't being as careful as I should have been, giving the people now, unfortunately, who are riding buses more and more. And I walked on, my kids were behind me, and I went to sit down. And before I knew it, I'm sitting down on somebody's lap, a grown man's lap, and I saw the seat was empty. So the person is scuttled in and got under. Very weird situation, totally threw me out of my comfort zone. Like you said, I should have been more aware, but I wasn't. Immediately got that adrenaline rush, what's going on here? But then I could immediately see, okay, this person is severe mental issues, mentally, like, I could tell, okay, they're not a dangerous person. They're a mentally handicapped person who, for some reason, really wanted that seat. I want this seat. I was backed off. Okay, you can have this seat. Went over to a different part of the bus. But I know that a lot of, let's say, some people might take that too escalatory. So how do you try to train those situations to say, okay, in some situations we just need to back down?
Absolutely. First off is we don't know how we're going to react until we're put in situations. Because I have people that have visited us with their family, and you don't know how you're going to react until that adrenaline hits, right? And so that's something that we want to start to show concepts and then see what you're going to do naturally, and then tweak and make adjustments to help keep you beyond reproach legally. Because the other part is people don't think about this, is that your kids are with you, and what just happened, what you just referenced, could be an ego-based scenario or something like that happens. So how does your family going to deal with that? Because now you could come to us and have training, but if your family's not with you, they're losing out on watching dad learn and apply concepts, and we all learn collectively. So that's the other side of the point where it's very family friendly here. And we start stranger danger at age 5. And it's just something that is a 3-to-1 student to instructor ratio, and it guarantees a custom experience. And then something else I want to touch on, it's hugely valuable to understand the enormous differences between law enforcement or military tactical style training experiences versus a custom civilian real life scenario experience. Okay. When doing law enforcement and military style exercises, the starting point is typically where you're already in a fight. You're already going into harm's way. You have to control a situation or restrain someone or a bad person. And it has little application to a civilian in their everyday life, when what they need to hard focus on is learning how to avoid conflict first. So that is what we're focused on, the real life of everyday people, everyday scenarios, things that are much more likely to happen. And let me tell you, that real life is much more complex. You know, like I referenced earlier, we talk about ego-based scenarios, road rage, someone cuts you off in line or being rude in a public place, and someone engages with them, similar to what you just said. And there's a huge number of variables and a huge number of potentially catastrophic results regarding the legal consequences of defending yourself before, during, and after an attack or an altercation. And like I said, this is what I wanted around the country, and I couldn't find anything like it that I would want to feel comfortable bringing my family. I was a retired, college athlete. I have good eye-hand coordination. I'm the father, and so it's my responsibility for my family's safety. That's what I take on, that responsibility. And it's something that it helps me that they have a little experience. And I feel more comfortable now that my 16-year-old who's going to a gas station, we live in Lake County, so it's a lot less, it's more of a rural area. and there's a lot less crime that happens here because the predators know that most everyone here is a porcupine and they can defend themselves, and they have tools and things like that. So, but if you go over one county and you go into Orange County, there's a lot more crime happening there, just because of lacks, where either law enforcement is restrained, or they're not able, or because of stop and release and certain things that bad people are getting put back on the street faster than they should.
Do you do, you mentioned you work with families and individuals. Do you work with, say, companies and corporations to do more sort of broad training for companies? I could see a company offering something like this as a benefit to their employees. And as I sit here thinking, I've done a ton of interviews on the increase in crime in bigger cities where the reporters were covering how employees, say in New York City, didn't feel comfortable just walking to work because of the increase in crime. And so I could see a company nowadays, again, as we see this increase in crime in big cities, offering this as a benefit to their employees.
Fantastic. And just this last weekend, we had a company called X Insurance, who is one of our partners, and they rewarded one of their best producers, a company out of St. Cloud, and they bought 10 spots for their top producers, and they visited, and we captured and provided a custom experience for the ladies that attended who had no previous training at all. And just this morning, we put out the video of that. So I'll be happy to email it to you guys, and you guys get to see the before and after of some ladies that came that had no idea what they were walking into. They just wanted a safety learning experience, and it's more mindset training. So none of them own a firearm. None of them were interested in that. And we still provided a really cool learning experience. At the two stations that we talked about were low light scenarios training and anti-carjacking, which is something that unfortunately is becoming very prevalent around the country, where you're in your car and someone bumps you from behind. And then similar to what you talked about, with a little sticky note or something on the front of the car, you're at a gas station, someone drops money, there's a $20 bill, someone goes to pick it up, and now there's some substance on it. And so this is where, again, it can get very, very complicated. And I love the what if game. I love questions. And that's how I get to dial in the experience for you more. And so I love that. And we can go down multiple rabbit holes. But yes, we have the best Christmas parties here, the company Christmas parties. We are the new golf course that instead of taking your client out golfing or fishing or what have you, you bring them here. And then that bonding and that team building is real value. And it's a custom experience that now you have that natural dopamine and oxytocin release. And it's also, as far as team building, you get to find out really quickly how fast someone can learn something, because you can interview very well. And once the honeymoon phase wears off, you get to find out really quickly whether someone can pick up information and process it. So a lot of managers bring their staff here. A lot of companies reward people for that, because now they get this really fun learning experience that's valuable to them in their everyday life. And they get to associate that with the people that they do business with. And it's just, there's nothing else like it.
What is the typical cost for a spot to come and do a training? Like if I were to bring, if I was a family of 4 and I was going to bring my family there for a training session, and how do people find out about your organization if they wanted to sign up for it?
So we have a website that I overpaid for years ago because I wanted WOFT.com, WOFT.com, whereourfamiliestrain.com, WOFT. And everything is included with what we do. So what bothers me the most is when you go places and, for example, we provide concealed carry permit training, because while Florida just recently passed a permitless carry, a constitutional carry, there's still a lot of responsibility that comes when you want to own a firearm. And it is the ultimate force multiplier. But again, a lot of responsibility comes with that. So we want to be everything in a one-stop shop. Well, a lot of places charge, for example, $45 for a concealed carry class or $75, where we charge $150.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that, we charge $150 for 4 hours of training, is because we provide all the gear. We provide the ammunition. We provide the gun rental. We provide the targets. We provide the ammunition. We provide the entire experience, to where when you go other places and they discount things, when you get there, they go, "Oh, I'm so glad, Jordan, thank you so much for coming. Did you bring a gun today? Oh, you're going to have to rent one from us. It's going to be XYZ. Oh, by the way, do you have any targets? Oh, no, you're going to have to buy some from us. By the way, it's going to be a rental fee," and they just start to nickel and dime you, if you will. And so that's just not something that we do. So everything is included. A half a day, which is what we initially start with people, is $875 per person.
Okay.
And for that half a day, which is 4 hours for scenario training, it's $875. For a half a day for a concealed carry permit, it's $150 per person.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just kind of goes up from there, to where we have a 2-day class, and the more time you give us, the more of a discount that we can provide. But with a 3-to-1 student to instructor ratio, it's challenging to be properly insured and to set up that kind of an atmosphere. And it's something that we've kind of backed into, that what's your family safety worth? You know, it's kind of priceless.
Yeah, I don't think you can put a price on it. And too often, I guess it may kind of be like a lot of people invest in an alarm system for their house after they've been robbed. And this is the preemptive on it. So having had some real life scenarios with my own family, I think this is a great service. I'm so glad that you provide this. And to our listeners, go to WOFT.com if you want to sign up and learn more about this very, very important training. Phillip, thank you so much for joining us today and telling us about your business. Really enjoyed hearing about it and talking about the different scenarios. Main Street Matters, America's Small Business Megaphone, is about talking to small businesses and talking about real life businesses on Main Street like yours. So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you all for tuning in, to taking the time to listen. Main Street Matters is part of the Salem Podcast Network. New episodes debut every Wednesday and Friday. You can subscribe to the show at salempodcastnetwork.com or wherever you get your podcast from. And we'll be back soon with another episode.